After suffering an accident that transforms her appearance, a pony manages to achieve fame, but has to choose whether she is willing to pay the price for the success of being a unicorn. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Thelma the Unicorn, from 2024. During her band's opening concert, a talented pony jumps into the audience, but ends up falling to the ground, because the truth is that the Rusty Buckets aren't famous yet. After waking up from her reverie, Thelma wants to get back to rehearsing, as she and her friends are auditioning the next day. However, the rehearsal has to be postponed when the team accidentally blows up a chemical toilet and the three decide to flee so as not to be discovered. Despite her extraordinary talent for music, Thelma lives on a farm with the other animals and tries to lead an ordinary life so as not to attract attention. When the big day of the contest arrives, Otis approaches his friend and says he's looking forward to the test that will take place in a few hours. For 10 years, the Rusty Buckets have been trying to make it big, but they've never had the chance to show their talent to the world. This time, however, Thelma believes it will be different and, when she sees Nikki presenting a TV musical, she feels even more convinced that she will soon become a star. While success doesn't come, the pony has to make do with her work on the farm and, when she tries to hide from the horses that live next door, she ends up being crushed by a pile of manure. Just then, Zirconia approaches and takes the opportunity to make fun of Thelma, as the mayor and her sisters will also be taking part in the talent competition with their trainers. Watching her opponents perform, the pony feels intimidated, but tries to appear confident as she enters the stage with her friends. However, before Thelma had a chance to sing, the judges interrupted her and asked for the Rusty Buckets to leave the stage. According to them, the band has no future because none of the members can light up the stage with their presence. Thelma's biggest goal is to play at Sparkpalooza, but the judges say they will never be able to get there. Furious at these words, the pony decides to retort, but ends up falling off the stage and making the whole audience laugh. Ashamed of all the humiliation she has suffered, Thelma decides to leave and spends the whole night alone in a cafeteria. When he finally manages to find his friend, Otis tries to cheer her up and invites her to play the RPG he has developed. While Otis' character is a warrior donkey, Thelma finds out that she will be playing a peasant pony who is an expert in martial arts. However, she is not satisfied with this character, as she would like to be the unicorn. After everything she's heard from the judges, the pony doesn't feel she's good enough to be a singer and says she wants to be left alone. The next few days working on the farm are worse than all the others, because now Thelma no longer has a dream to cling to. One day, while walking through the stable, she spots a carrot and decides to stick it on her forehead. At that moment, Thelma acquires a horn and watches the reflection of her shadow, imagining how cool it would be if she were a unicorn. Suddenly, an overloaded paint truck approaches the farm and the driver loses control of the vehicle. When the truck overturns, Thelma ends up being hit by pink paint and her whole body is covered in glitter. Looking at her reflection in a pool of water, Thelma realizes that she looks identical to a unicorn and asks Otis to help her take some photos of her new look. At that moment, a family of tourists who were passing by spotted the little one and decided to stop and have a closer look, as they believed it to be a real unicorn. For the first time in her life, Thelma receives attention from the humans and Susie asks to take a photo with her. Minutes later, a queue forms around the farm and Thelma is surprised to realize that all those people are there to see her. Immediately, the singer asks Otis to pick up his guitar, as she wants to take advantage of all the attention she's receiving to show her true talent. However, her friend doesn't agree. He thinks it's wrong that Thelma is pretending to be someone she's not in order to achieve fame. Even so, the unicorn manages to convince him to play and then Reggie, the drummer, shows up with the instruments. When Thelma starts singing, people are enchanted by her beautiful voice and it's not long before a film crew shows up to record the performance. On that day, the Rusty Buckets concert is broadcast on TV and the musical group begins to gain fans all over the country, as their videos go viral on the internet. The following week, news of the existence of a pink unicorn spreads to every corner of the planet and Thelma becomes internationally known. After the show, Otis tries to convince his friend to clean up that paint, but Thelma doesn't intend to do that, because now she's getting the attention she's always dreamed of. Seeing the number of likes Thelma's video has received, Otis agrees to continue the farce, so that his band has a chance of being chosen to play at Sparkpalooza. Meanwhile, Nikki is having a bad day, as her agent has just read a review about her that was published in the newspaper. Although she hates to admit it, Nikki knows that her fame is under threat, so Vic, her manager, needs to come up with an urgent strategy to prevent this from happening. That night, while playing a role-playing game with Otis, Thelma hears beautiful music coming from the barn and decides to go there to find out what's going on. Just then, the two friends come across Peggy Purvis playing a guitar solo and are shocked to discover that the legendary music producer has come to the farm to meet them. Unlike the other people who liked Thelma because she was a unicorn, the elderly blind woman went there for the music, as she was thrilled to hear the pony sing. Despite having retired a few years ago, Peggy decides to help the Rusty Buckets become a famous band and invites them to record an album. A few days later, the woman takes the trio to see her studio and they are surprised to discover that they are in the same room where rock legends recorded their most successful songs. A few weeks after the start of recording, Peggy receives a call from Vic and the manager invites the Rusty Buckets to play an opening gig at Nicky's next concert. When she receives this offer, Thelma is extremely excited, but Otis is afraid of what might happen when people find out that his friend is not a unicorn. Even so, the trio accepts the invitation, so Vic picks them up in his private plane and takes the band to Las Vegas. When they arrive at the airport, the group comes across 2 limousines and Vic enlists the help of his co-workers to separate Thelma from her friends. The unicorn gets into a vehicle by herself while Peggy and the others are pushed into the other limousine. On the way to the hotel, Vic sends a missile to blow up the back of the vehicle and the trio end up stranded on the road. Minutes later, Thelma arrives in Nicky's dressing room, who is not at all happy about having to share the stage with a unicorn. Hours pass and the rest of the band still hasn't shown up, so Thelma refuses to go on stage, having never performed without Otis and Reggie before. However, Vic manages to convince the pony that her friends abandoned her because they were afraid to play in front of a big audience. So the manager convinces her to go on stage alone and, with her beautiful song, Thelma manages to captivate all the people who have come to see her. Meanwhile, outside the stadium, Peggy and the Rusty Buckets try to get in, but end up being barred by the security guard and are disappointed to discover that Thelma has agreed to go on stage without them. When he sees the unicorn's great success, Vic decides to sign her and tears up the contract he had made with Nicky. Just then, the swordfish invades the stage and orders the unicorn to leave. Frightened, Thelma runs away and Nicky starts her show, but is booed by all her old fans. Suddenly, the safety cables break and the fish falls to the ground, causing a large hole in the middle of the stage. While all this damage is going on the other side of the curtains, Vic convinces Thelma to sign a contract with him, with the promise that both she and her band will play at Sparkpalooza. When she hears the crowd shouting her name, the unicorn is overcome with emotion and signs the contract before even reading what is written on it. As she leaves the stadium, Thelma is applauded by a crowd of fans and spots Otis. She immediately approaches him to tell him the news, but the animal refuses to leave Peggy, since it was she who gave the band its first chance to take off. However, Thelma is not willing to give up the opportunity Vic has offered her and decides to leave with the businessman. Seeing the news about her last show being a real fiasco, Nicky orders Megan, her assistant, to go and investigate the unicorn. Her goal is to uncover Thelma's dirt and release it to the media, as she believes she needs to destroy her competitor to get back to the top. When she realizes that her lie is going too far, Thelma decides to call her manager for a chat and reveals that she is not a real unicorn. However, Vic has always known the truth and says he doesn't care, as long as Thelma keeps pretending to be someone she's not. At this point, the businessman shares with his newest star his secrets to success and says that all famous people use some kind of camouflage to hide who they really are. For Vic, this process is part of the game when the ultimate goal is to achieve fame, so as long as Thelma keeps pretending, they won't have any problems. In an attempt to boost her star's media profile even further, the manager advises Thelma to get close to Danny Stallion, a sub-celebrity who has been gaining a lot of attention lately. However, when she approaches him, the unicorn discovers that it's all just an act. Danny's real dream is to become a neurosurgeon, so he decided to create a character to make fun of on the internet and earn money to pay for college. Now that he's been abandoned by his best friend, Otis has to find a way to keep her close and spends all day playing his RPG, so he can interact with Thelma's doll. Suddenly, Reggie appears with terrible news and informs him that Thelma has already managed to form a new partnership. When he hears this, Otis feels even sadder and more jealous when he sees his best friend next to Danny Stallion. Unlike what she shows on camera, Thelma is not at all happy with her new manager, as he is not concerned with helping her release her music. The truth is that Vic's only motivation is money and he has no interest in art. Instead of encouraging Thelma to release the songs she has written, the man uses artificial intelligence to create viral hits, which, according to the algorithm, are making a splash with young audiences. Under Vic's command, the unicorn makes his first appearance in a music video, in which he shares a space with Danny. When he hears the lyrics of the song his friend has released, Otis is incredulous, as he would never have imagined that Thelma could do such a bad job. Despite the terrible music, the fake couple are a huge hit with the public and all the products they release sell out in the stores very quickly. In a few months, Vic earns a lot of money and Thelma's song becomes a top 1 hit in the world. In an attempt to unmask the unicorn, Megan pays a group of haters to invade a book signing. While talking to her fans, Thelma receives a visit from Otis and Reggie and discovers that they have found another singer for the band. When her friends leave, Thelma begins to regret the choices she made in the past and, as she walks sadly through the streets, she has to flee from the haters that Megan has sent to persecute her. When she is attacked, the unicorn runs to the hotel and, when she enters the room, she finds her old music notebook. As she flips through the pages, she comes across an old photo and remembers how much happier she was when she was singing with her band. At this point, Thelma decides to call Otis, but is interrupted by a call from Vic, and the manager reveals that he has secured a place for his star to perform at Sparkpalooza. That night, the biggest music awards event of the year will take place and, while waiting for her turn on stage, Thelma notices that her makeup is coming off. She quickly runs to the bathroom and, after covering the gap, realizes that Megan is hiding in a booth. At that moment, the woman throws a bucket of water on the unicorn and Thelma's true appearance is revealed. Immediately, Megan takes out her cell phone to record the scene and the pony realizes that she has been unmasked. If this video is published, Thelma's entire reputation will be destroyed and she will end up being hated all over the planet. To prevent this from happening, she decides to make a deal with Megan and promises to give up her career so that Nikki can become a star again. Luckily, Megan accepts the deal, but says that if Thelma ever returns to the stage, her secret will be revealed to the whole world. After removing her costume, the pony leaves and causes great despair among the fans, who interrupt the awards ceremony to look for her. That day, the whole world mourns when it learns of the unicorn's sudden disappearance. All over the country, volunteers are uniting to search for her, because for her fans, Thelma represents all the magic and hope that exists in the world. 2 weeks later, the pony is walking aimlessly along the road and comes across a huge sign announcing her disappearance. Just then, a paint truck approaches and Krusty offers her a ride. Immediately, Thelma realizes that it was that same truck that overturned next to the farm and allowed her to become a big star. At every moment, the universe conspires to remind the pony of her loss and, more, Thelma feels unable to rebuild her life. During the journey, Krusty tells her that he has just got engaged to the woman of his dreams, but reveals that he is hiding a big secret from her. The driver is afraid to tell his fiancée that he is world champion on the clandestine tap dancing circuit. According to him, his fans call him the Thundercalf, because his calves as a dancer are huge. Despite being admired by many people, Krusty is afraid of being left by his fiancée if she finds out who he really is. Upon hearing this, Thelma advises the driver to reveal his secret, because if his wife really loves him, she won't abandon him. After saying this, the pony realizes that she needs to take her own advice and asks Krusty to take her back to Los Angeles. On the way, Thelma runs into her friend Otis, who was spreading posters around the city in the hope of finding her. When he sees the pony, the guitarist runs to hug her and Thelma apologizes for abandoning her band. To make up for her mistake, the pony decides to show the world who she really is and Otis invites her to join the Rusty Buckets again, since the singer who replaced her has been fired. Then Peggy and Reggie show up and Thelma has a chance to apologize to the whole team. After making up with her friends, she prepares to perform at Sparkpalooza, the biggest music event of the year, which will take place that night. Thelma's fans are hoping that their favorite star will appear at the festival, but until that happens, Nikki takes the opportunity to show off on stage. Now that the unicorn is out of the media, Nikki sees the opportunity to move up the career ladder, as there are no other competitors to match her. What the singer doesn't realize is that the Rusty Buckets have just arrived at the event and have managed to bypass the security guard. However, it doesn't take long for the guards to notice the intruders and Peggy has to take action to knock them down with her cane. At that moment, Thelma and her friends run towards the stage and have to escape from the security guards who are trying to capture them. During their escape, the trio manage to hide in a warehouse and quickly block the door so that the guards can't reach them. However, the Rusty Buckets end up being surrounded by Megan and Nikki, who are hiding behind the boxes and are able to do whatever it takes to stop Thelma from going on stage. Seeing that Megan is holding a shock device, the musicians move away and end up being cornered. To defend herself, Thelma throws a mop in Megan's direction and accidentally pulls a lever that makes the platform underneath her band start to rise. Despite Nikki's numerous attempts to get rid of them, the Rusty Buckets manage to get on stage at Sparkpalooza and Thelma dresses up as a unicorn again to perform. At the sight of her, her fans are silent, waiting for an explanation as to why she has disappeared. Just then, the pony walks up to the microphone and reveals that she has always wanted to be on that stage. From a very young age, her dream was to become a music star, but because of her appearance, Thelma didn't think she was good enough. During her speech, the unicorn says she's tired of pretending to be someone she's not and reveals her true identity. At this point, Thelma can feel the audience's frustration, but she decides to carry on and sings a song of her own. With the support of her band, the pony has the chance to present her talent to an audience of thousands and show everyone who she really is. Listening to that beautiful song, the audience ends up being touched by the lyrics written by Thelma and manages to forgive her for lying about her appearance. In the end, the pony realizes that she doesn't need to have a certain standard of beauty to stand out, because her authenticity is something that can never be taken away from her. At the end of the performance, Thelma sees a legion of fans shouting her name and decides to do something she's always dreamed of. The singer then jumps off the stage and falls into the audience's arms. The following week, the Rusty Buckets return to the farm and continue to be managed by Peggy, who wants to help the band release their first album. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.